SimplePlanes 2 designer improvements in CM Supreme Dorian 13 hours ago. SimplePlanes 2 has a number of improvements and additions to the designer to help speed up your workflow and ease some old pain points.
One of these additions is new 3D gizmos for nudging and rotating parts. Those of you who have used any professional 3D software will likely be familiar with these. They massively speed up the rate you can make adjustments to the placement or rotation of parts, which you can follow up with additional fine-tuning using the standard number-based menus you're used to if you need it. To access these gizmos, there's a new button in the bottom right corner of the designer that lets you select them. There's a nudge tool, a rotate tool, and we've also added a view tool that lets you move the camera around without accidentally grabbing parts. Once you open one of these gizmos, you can change a few properties, the step size, i.e. how many grid spaces the nudge gizmo will move a part per tick, or how many degrees the rotate gizmo will rotate a part by, whether to affect just a selected part or connected parts too, and whether to move parts relative to their local rotation or the world coordinates. A few months ago, we asked you all for your thoughts on part mirroring. This resulted in a lot of insightful comments, and as you might have guessed, it was not merely a hypothetical question.
SimplePlanes 2 introduces a brand new symmetry system that mirrors parts in real time, rather than requiring you to push a button every time you want to mirror something. To use part symmetry, simply click the symmetry button on the right side of the screen. You can set symmetry to automatically be enabled on every new part you add to the craft, and you can set it for any individual part and its connected parts. Once set, symmetry will automatically mirror every change you do with that part to the other side of the craft. Translation, rotation, changing part properties, or whatever else. That's not all though. In the properties menu for certain parts, you can click a button to disable symmetry for specific part modifiers while keeping it enabled for the rest of that part, allowing you to create asymmetrical crafts without having to disable symmetry entirely. One of the biggest frustrations with the original SimplePlanes when you were highly experienced with the game or brand new was the undo feature. It would very often have a tendency to behave in unexpected ways, like teleporting your craft around or undoing a massive amount of work all at once, or both. We put a lot of effort into improving the undo behavior for SimplePlanes 2. You should notice a lot more of your work having proper undo steps, with your craft doing its best to stay put this time. Not only have we made undo work better, we've also given it a new feature. There's a brand new undo history menu where you can see the edit history of your craft and click on a specific undo step to. Verfolgt. We've put a lot of effort into improving the undo behavior for SimplePlanes 2. You should notice a lot more of your work having proper undo steps, with your craft doing its best to stay put this time. Not only have we made undo work better, we've also given it a new feature. There's a brand new undo history menu where you can see the edit history of your craft and click on a specific undo step to. Doesn't have to spam Control-C or Control-Y if you want to go way back, which would get quite laggy on very complicated crafts. If you like what you see, please consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these blogs early, consider joining our Discord server. If you like what you see, please consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these blogs early, consider joining our Discord server.
is a follow-up to our previous post about the new wings and fuselages in SimplePlanes 2, with more in-depth information than we gave you in the last one. If you missed part 1, check it out here. Wings. This one is going to be a slight change of pace compared to our previous showcases, with some more nerdy talk than usual. If that isn't your style and you'd rather skip it, then the key takeaway here is this. For SP2, we've completely redone the flight model for the wings, making the physics more dynamic and interesting than ever before. For the nerds that want the juicy details, I'd let Nikki,
The mastermind behind these new wings, like the rest of the showcases, he can explain it far better than I can.
Having heard so many stories from people who played the game as a way to explore aeronautics from a young age and later found themselves growing up into qualified pilots, engineers, or mechanics, I knew that the educational side of the game was very important, and I always wanted to expand on it in the sequel.
One way to do this is to increase the fidelity of our flight model. This is something I've been planning for a while, and it's great to finally see results. Many modern methods exist for simulating the aerodynamics of aeroplanes, but almost all of them are made for designing real-life aircraft. This means that they favor being numerically accurate to real life. At the expense of huge amounts of computational power and ease of use, SP2's flight model is not for designing real-life aircraft and has a very different set of requirements. It needs to be highly performant to run on as many devices as possible, and it also needs to be numerically stable. If an iterative solution fails to converge for an aircraft,
And the key takeaway from that, and the key takeaway here. For the nerds that want the juicy details, like Nikki, the mastermind leading your wings, like the wings. Of course, we still use real-life data and scaling as much as we can, but the key takeaway can, we shouldn't let it get in the way of teaching the crew. Concepts, numbers are important, but concepts more so. Here are some new concepts that we're finding SP2. Control surface moments.
in addition to increasing and reducing the wings lift, control surfaces also apply a turning force to the wing dog. In FP1, you can also reduce your turn, but we shouldn't let it get in the way of teaching important concepts. Numbers are important, concepts more so. Here are some new concepts that we'll find in SP2.
Control surface moments. In addition to increasing or reducing a wing's lift, control surfaces also apply a turning force to the wing they're on. In SP1, you can often deploy your flaps all the way to increase your turn rate and save yourself from an early introduction to the ground.
This is less advisable in SP2, where flaps will correctly because you pitch down. This also means that elevators on delta wings can work without the fakery required in SP1.
More in-depth customization. As we mentioned in the previous blog, you can tune the airflow parameters to change how your wing
This accentuates the difference between a docile trainer and a resilient fighter. The range of control surface types you've seen are also not just for show. Each one affects your maximum lift, stall angle, moment, and drag uniquely. Wing efficiency. A key consideration when designing a wing is efficiency. It's easy to get buried in airflow cross sections and forget that there's a third dimension down the span of your wing. We're experimenting with a new system that adds effect-driven airflow along the span of your wing. You'll see that longer, thinner wings like you see on glider are more efficient than shorter, stubbier wings. This system makes it so that maximizing the efficiency of your build is more than just reducing the frontal surface area for drag. Speaking of drag, this was a fairly painful topic in SimplePlanes 1. The drag model had a ton of problems, which becomes quite apparent when you look at any of the top crafts on the website and notice that they typically have drag disabled on most of the parts. In SimplePlanes 2, that old drag model is still there, but you can now choose to switch a craft to a brand new drag model that addresses as many of the egregious issues with the old one. The new drag model uses the visual mesh of your craft rather than its collider. This means the overall drag profile of your craft will be more accurate and intuitive. The curvature and angle of surfaces are now also taken into consideration. Crafts using the new drag model should notice a significant reduction in overall drag. Allowing for better speed, performance should be better, especially with very large crafts. The frustrating issues with inexplicable asymmetry of drag should also be resolved. The new model also has some
will give against the limit in the old model. In-flight drag recalculation. Drag will now be automatically recalculated in flight when the geometry of your craft changes, such as upon being detached or destroyed. Body lift. Non-wing parts are now capable of generating a small amount of lift based on their angle of attack. To complement the new drag model, we completely overhauled the drag visualizer into the designer. It is now much more useful and very tricky with a range of blue gradient depending on how prominent the drag is on a surface. As for the animation to go along with it, the new visualizer shows a much more accurate visual of the drag forces on your craft, showing exactly where the drag is spits, or instead of just highlighting entire parts based on their total drag, though you can re-enable the behavior if you want to. The drag visualizer can be tuned to your liking, allowing you to set an angle for the airflow as well as the maximum range of drag values to be shown. Note that as of writing this, the visualizer doesn't work on wings due to technical limitations, though by the time the game is released, this may change. If you like what seems, please consider wishlisting. SimplePlanes 2 on Sing. If you'd like to see bits of these blogs, then consider joining our Discord server. Wishlist. SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. Talk, it's coming for you. See bits of these blogs, only consider joining our Discord server. Wishlist. SimplePlanes to a Steam. It's coming for you. SimplePlanes 2. Simple Wheels. See our Supreme door ran 7 minutes ago. Among the original SimplePlanes parts in desperate need of a facelift is the resizable wheel. It was introduced over 9 years ago and has received relatively little change since then, besides the addition of a number of new visual styles. Needless to say, improving the wheels has been a high priority for SimplePlanes 2, and we're really excited to finally show off what we've been working on. To start with, the model for the wheels is much more detailed. Look closely, and you'll see high-definition rims, the brake rotor, and the brake caliper, all of which have their own paint trims. There's also new skid mark and tire smoke visual effects, letting your craft leave a lasting impression everywhere it goes. As far as customization goes, there's the standard size, and with options you already know and love, but we also went just a tiny bit overboard, and now you have over 20 tire styles, over 20 rim styles, and a bunch of tread styles, all of which can be independently selected. You can also use a slider to adjust the offset of the rim, setting it deeper or shallower and into the tire. All of these allow for an insane degree of personalization, letting you make your wheels look exactly the way you want them to. But new visuals aren't the only thing we did with the wheels. Come on, did you really think we'd leave the physics untouched? Because boy oh boy did we touch them. The wheel physics have been totally redone, behaving in a much more realistic and fun way. They behave differently depending on the type of surface you're on. Grass, sand, surf, you can drift in them. They have much better colliders and so much more. The new wheels use an elliptical grip model. Shout out to BB, the SimplePlanes 1 mod that does a similar thing 2 years ago, which is a difficult concept to explain. So if you're interested, you can check out this Wikipedia page. What it essentially means is the way the grip in your wheels works is significantly more dynamic and realistic than before, allowing each wheel to oversteer or understeer depending on a multitude of factors, for much more interesting vehicle handling. properties of the elliptical model to what we feel. Meets a nice middle ground for the needs of most players. But we've left those properties open in the craft. XML for those of you who want to fine-tune your craft's handling in a more in-depth way. Wheels are cool and all, but they don't exist in a vacuum. Unless your name is Apollo. In order to make a vehicle that drives smoothly and doesn't violently break itself apart at the slightest bump, you need suspension. You could make suspension in SimplePlanes more than many people have happily done so, but it required a fair bit of knowledge of the actual mechanics of real-life suspension, and was generally not intuitive to a new player. So in SimplePlanes 2, we've added a brand new procedural.
Suspension part with a variety of tweakable properties. Now you can simply drag and drop some suspension onto your craft. Tune it to your liking, slap a wheel on it, and go on your merry way! Here's a quick rundown of the suspension properties you can customize.
These are self-explanatory. They affect the overall size of the part as well as how far from the center of the craft it will extend. Length defines the suspension's range of motion and how far off the ground the main body of your craft will be. A nimble race car made for a track might prefer a shorter suspension that doesn't travel much, but an off-roader will want all the room it can get to navigate perilous terrain. Stiffness. This affects the strength of the spring to bring to how smooth of an experience you want. A softer spring will make for a more pleasant and stable ride on uneven ground, but may not give the desired responsiveness for a track-oriented car that a more firm spring would damper affects the suspension's resistance to vibration. Low damper on inline range suspension bounce here and back for bumps in and higher damp bumps and higher damper will keep the suspension steady, which will help plant your tires more firmly onto the road. Shock position, a purely property that affects how far forward a shock absorber is spinning your vehicles, essentially to be quite a fun process.
With an endless variety made to model for it, it just needs to be brought to life on the programming side by Andrew. Circling back to life on the programming scanned and limits out this invention. They affect the overall size of the part as well as on the center of the craft. If you want us to center on the center of the craft, it will extend. The tip of the craft, it will extend on the unique part to life. They can be gripped upon shot for an added layer of interactivity to your craft. To make operating the steering wheels more comfortable for Chad, there's now a reclinable racing chair as well. Perfect as a more grounded replacement for the aircraft-centric chairs. Currently available in the game, you can set it to recline anywhere from 0 to 90 degrees in the designer, and Chad will lean back along with it, maybe with some neck pain if you don't adjust his head rotation. For all the improvements you've seen us make to ground vehicles, there's still one glaring issue left. Engines. In SB1, the car engine is incredibly bare bones and hardly behaves the way it should, as it merely applies torque to a selected set of wheels and does little else. So let's fix the procedural engine, a powertrain system. In SimplePlanes 2, we're adding procedural engines and transmissions, along with purely correlated is the other main system. Sound configuration currently in the game as of writing this. We also have plans to rapture it to be quite a fun process with an endless fun process within it, quite a fun process with an endless variety of configurations depending on what you want. There's no singular best option. The family all center. There's so great to look at the menu and gun. It'll give us a suspension property. Don't know it's no manufacturable. We're on back the shock absorbers, fitting the vehicle suspension and getting quite a fun process with an endless process. In SP1, the car engine is incredibly bare bones and hardly behaves the way it should, as it merely applies torque to a selected set of wheels and does little else. So let's fix that. Procedural engine and powertrain system. In SimplePlanes 2, we're adding procedural engines and transmissions, along with but purely cobble. Several modular parts should make it all work. Let's start with the engine. The new procedural engine is highly customizable and has significantly more realistic behavior.
settings, simple to set up. Rotational inertia, torque curves, and angular velocity are all simulated now. This lets you really feel the way your engine responds to the variety of situations you put it in, especially with the new RPM gauge and the flight UI that appears when you're in a car. There are a few properties you can mess around with on the engine. Size. Raising this increases the engine's horsepower and torque, but reduces its maximum RPM and increases its mass. Cylinders. Increasing the number of cylinders in the engine raises its horsepower and torque without reducing RPM, what makes the engine longer and heavier. Engine tuning. The engine tuning slider, you can tune the engine to produce more torque but less RPM, or vice versa. More torque will improve your vehicle's acceleration and make it better at carrying heavy loads, but the resulting loss in RPM will reduce your top speed, which may not be desirable for a race car. Next, the transmission. A transmission allows you to optimize your engine's output according to how fast you're going, using a set of gears, and the new transmission part gives you it. You can choose between manual or automatic shifting, 3 different gear profiles pre-configured, pre-optimized for street racing and off-road performance. Set the number of gears from 3 to 10 and you can tune it. Similar to the engine tuning. Gear tuning allows you to choose whether to prioritize torque or top speed, allowing for further fine-tuning beyond just the engine itself. Now for some really cool stuff. In order to make the engine work, you use a combination of drive shafts, differentials, and transfer cases to link everything together. Drive shafts build a path from your engine to other powertrain parts, and differentials and transfer cases allow you to split that output in multiple directions to make any drive configuration you can imagine. This might sound complicated, but true to the game's name, anyway, we've made it quite simple. Just place a drive shaft at the end of your transmission, and the drive shaft will automatically shift and scale itself around the link to end to any parts you attach to it, allowing for creation of ground vehicles in a way that is both intuitive and occasional, and heavy occasional. While the whole powertrain system might sound like it's just for ground vehicles, during development we realized how flexible it truly is. So not only will we be adding additional types of cars, we'll also accommodate use of the powertrain system for aircraft via propeller engines and turbines. We've uploaded a video showing off the new powertrain system. Check it out here.
SimplePlanes 2 Never Limits Part 3. Sam's agreed Dorian 12 hours ago. Hello again. It's blog post time again, this time with yet another set of map-related stuff to show off. We got vehicles, a new island, and more. So let's get started.
In SimplePlanes 2, there are a number of vehicles that spawn around the map, ranging from cars to airplanes, boats, and even the occasional blimp or hot air balloon. They all spawn in predefined areas that we're able to set, and each has a randomized color palette. In order to maintain a balance of quality and performance, among other reasons, these vehicles are their own handmade 3D models rather than crafts made in the game. Achieving something with the scope we wanted is a large undertaking, so we called in reinforcements. Enter Emmanuel Lanois, or simply Emma, is a 3D artist who's been making many of these vehicles for us, having previously made a number of structures for a little-known game called Microsoft Flight Simulator. Everything she's made for SP2 is built to look pretty without feeling stylistically out of place with the rest of the game, serving as nice little set pieces to make the world of SP2 feel less lonely. Emma has some words of her own to share in regards to the creative process here, so I'm gonna let her take over now. I was asked to make several vehicles to populate the airport, including a blimp, a hot air balloon, a yacht, golf cart, planes, and a helicopter. This was a fun task as I got to use some of the skills and techniques I had learned working on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, where I was taught very handy hard surface modeling techniques that give a really nice result. I am very proud of the vehicles I have made for SimplePlanes 2 and hope they enhance the overall game. The vehicle modeling process is always the same for me. First, I need to create a bounding box that is the length, width, and height of the vehicle I am making. Then I set up some blueprints of that vehicle, which I download off the internet. Next, I will start with primary shapes, a box or cylinder or plane, which I can form and add lines to, and slowly build up the final shape with the least amount of lines possible. Once the silhouette is correct, I can start adding details like windows and doors and some panels, which I cut into the surface. And finally, I add the small parts like door handles, aerials, and lights. The main difficulty was trying to keep the poly count as low as possible, while also making sure all the curved surfaces were curved enough. Once the vehicle is modeled, I lay out the UVs to be able to texture it. I made the textures fairly simple to match the style of the vehicles players make in the game. Also, the materials are made to be able to change the color of the vehicles in-game for more variety. The last step is to create LODs. From the vehicle I modeled and textured, I make a version with a reduced amount of polygon that will be displayed in the game. It's a classic optimization method that is very efficient to make the game run faster. Located just off the east coast of Atista Island, there's a whole other island we haven't talked about yet called Driftwood Island. Driftwood Island. Driftwood is a bit different from the other three islands. It's a small, eccentric private island that's densely packed with fun play spaces, with its main attraction being Kunimitsu Airport, named after Kunimitsu Takahashi, a legendary Japanese racing driver who popularly immortalized the art of drifting in a car. Kunimitsu Airport is a private airport set on the southern end of Driftwood Island, built to be a hot spot for all sorts of high-profile racing events, both on and off the ground. Kunimitsu is another collaboration with Emma that we're very proud of. So once again, I'll let her speak for herself. Due to my previous experience as an environment and props artist working on Flight Simulator 2020, creating airports, monuments, and vehicles, I was hired by Chundru to work on SimplePlanes 2. The first model I worked on was airports. Working closely with the team, I designed original buildings that look like a small private airport with all its functionalities: runways, taxiways, control tower, ATC, fire station, terminal hangar, radar antenna, and fuel station. It was a fun task to do as I got to express creativity with the designs while keeping it functional and fun to play. We wanted a classy feel inspired by luxury hotels in Dubai, and also private airports while keeping with the mood of the game. From the block out and the brief provided by the team, I modeled a terminal building with organic shapes and a glass ceiling inspired by modern architecture. The team wanted the airport to be able to receive a lot of different vehicles from air, ground, and water, so we designed it with helipads on the roof, a big hangar at the front where small planes can come from the runways, floating piers at the backs of parked boats, and underground parking for cars. I hope it's fun to play around on. The ATC is a fairly classic design, but since the terminal building is quite tall, the ATC needed to be tall as well. This became a problem as it felt out of place next to the terminal. To solve that problem, plus balance that design more, we ended up lowering the roof of the terminal and adding a race control tower like Lee's track, lovingly crafted by another contributor.
They brought on to help us create SP2's environments. The Driftwood Circuit, and most of its surroundings besides the airport, is made by Henry Deng, who many of you may know better as D-Stocks, a prominent member of the SimplePlanes community and a moderator on our website. Collaborating with him has been a treat, and it's resulted in one of my favorite areas in the game.
As with endless contributions, Henry is much more suited to talk about this than me, so I'll leave the rest of the explanation to him. Most of you may already know me. Some of you may not. I've recently had the opportunity to help out with environmental assets and related art for SP2 of the items I've worked on so far. The most recent and by far the largest is Driftwood Circuit, connected to and carving through Kutametsu's airport layout. Driftwood Circuit represents a huge leap in fidelity for racetracks over SP1, while the layout of the circuit was already made. The full layout of which I'll leave a secret, but will look familiar to those who notice. I worked on the trackside buildings, barriers, and details. Something that I wanted to improve on from SP1's tracks was the immersion and sense of scale, alongside the improved fitment of the track with the terrain. The inclusion of new runoffs and barriers will make racing between friends much more forgiving. Sometimes not, and fun. The circuit is separated into 4 distinct sectors, each with a unique feel. I looked at a wide variety of real-life tracks and modeled certain aspects after them as an homage to legendary racetracks. And to try and show respect to our motorsports enthusiasts, the last sector includes a number of alternate routes, allowing for multiple combinations and lengths of layouts. These, combined with the new activities, will give everybody a ton of things to do in lots of different cars, from formula racers to drift cars or stadium trucks. In the future, Driftwood Circuit won't be the only track to populate the island, and hopefully they'll live up to the hype. I'll be back a few more times this week to talk about some of the other things I've been working on. Among the contributions Henry has made to the world of SP2, besides Driftwood Circuit, are various bridges around the map, ranging from a grand suspension bridge connecting 2 islands together to a small bridge on a tube. There are quite a few bridges scattered across the islands. If you happen to be a bridge enthusiast, I'm sure you'll have fun. Or maybe you just want to blow them up. Nobody's gonna stop you. As with last time, I will be acting as a bridge for Henry to talk about some of this stuff himself. Here's what he has to say. Acting as the gateway into New York from Middleton, the suspension bridge helped form the mainland corridor between the island chain's 2 major cities. Following the stylistic direction we wanted, I looked to combine some more classic North American examples with some from East. Asia, particularly from Guizhou province in China, to create a more unique design. A number of factors relating to player interactions were considered. The bridge incorporates an array of decorative lights and functional anti-collision beacons, helping it stand out at night. Due to the nature of the terrain on both sides of the water, I had to give the deck of the bridge a rather aggressive arch so that there was enough clearance for most types of military and commercial vessels. If your ship just won't fit, fear not. The entire main structure is able to be fractured, so you can just blast your way through the rest of the island. Have multiple smaller bridges dotted across the landscape, but this one is the standout feature in comparison. Scattered across the SimplePlanes archipelago are various little points of interest that add some much needed atmosphere. These 2 are made by Henry. Here's what he has to say. Variety of different toys stop the landscape of SP2. These are meant to provide players with options that encourage them to explore the more remote corners of the map. 3 different types of toys currently exist: lighthouses, firewatch, lookouts, and stug ramps. Each type has 2 variations, and more unique toys are planned for the future. A number of lighthouses guard the islands and dangerous coasts across the islands. They function with working beacon lights that cast out into the darkness. The tower is both a tall but dressed version and a shorter, stout one. This variety combined with auxiliary support buildings helps give each location a unique feel. The Firewatch towers come in a tall, stilted version and a short stone-based one often placed far into the forest. These towers provide great opportunities to kick your feet up and enjoy the landscape. Lastly, players can find a number of stunt jumps dotting the landscape. The Call of the Void manifested coming in a rickety wooden and more sturdy steel version. These will help players get maximum air before gravity inevitably takes over. More unique toys are planned as the game progresses, but we'll keep them a secret for now. If you like what you're seeing, please consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these vlogs early, consider joining our Discord server.
Good news and bad news. Dev Andrew gas and 42 minutes ago. Hey everyone, it's getting late. Early 2025, and we've been hearing a familiar question more and more. When is the game actually coming out? So let's talk about it. I've got good news and bad news. The good news! We finally have a release month! The bad news! It's not until next year! We are going to release SimplePlanes 2 on Steam as early access in March of 2026. We're still considering what the initial price will be. Most likely it will be 20 titles or 25 with a 10% launch discount, and that price will go up when we exit early access. At this point, we don't expect to delay the mobile release, but it's certainly possible it will slip to 2027. Why early access? Because we wouldn't dream of trying to finish this game without the community's input. We built something here that we're truly proud of, and it's shaping up to be our most exciting feature-packed launch ever. But there's still work to do. Localization, VR support, more cards, more environments, and most importantly, time to listen and respond to the community before calling it final. Early access is the only sensible way to release a game like this for a community like this. But you get a team like this. But wait, there's more good news! Now for the really exciting part, this October we're releasing a free limited time demo on Steam for everyone. This demo, which we're internally calling the Flight Demo, is focused on letting you experience multiplayer and a taste of the new environments. Here's what to expect. The designer will be read-only. You can load up and look at any craft, including your SP1 crafts, but you can't modify them. You won't be able to add, remove, or modify any parts. However, the designer will let you paint your craft, so you can check out the new texture system, which is pretty sweet. We have a new set of stock crafts built with love by our playtesters. They are awesome. We'll have a showcase post for them in the future. Driftwood Island. You will be restricted to a small island just east of the main SP2 Isles. It has plenty of great stuff to check out, so don't try to leave because Nathan has installed a very accurate missile system that will shoot you down. Aside from those limitations, the demo will let you do quite a lot. You'll be able to start activities such as air and car races, a bomber defense mission, play multiplayer with your friends, or just explore the island. We're really excited to get the game in your hands soon, and we hope this demo will help alleviate some of the sting of having the game delayed. You might even come across a developer in a multiplayer lobby on occasion. One last thing! When you check out the Steam page, you might notice some new art. We got new key art for the game from the very still Daniel Lisk. It turned out really nice, and you'll be seeing it on the game on Steam now. In the thumbnail, your library, and so on. Thanks for your patience and thanks for playing.
on. If you haven't already, please consider requesting SimplePlanes to our Steam and joining our Discord server. We hope to see you in October when we release the demo. SimplePlanes 2. Open water. CM Supreme Dorian 1 hours ago. Sitting in SimplePlanes 1's vast ocean is one of the game's most iconic locations, which isn't an island at all, nor necessarily a building. It's a ship. USS Beast has been a much-loved part of the original SimplePlanes, but with its last revision being all the way back in 2019 with version 1.8, it's been long overdue for an upgrade. The USS Beast 2. I'm not gonna miss words. Kevin has done a phenomenal job giving the Beast a complete remake. The entire thing was completely rebuilt from scratch. Nothing was untouched. The entire model is so much higher in fidelity, feeling more like a real location than the Beast ever has, with some neat new features to boot. Let Kevin take over for a minute. Here's some insight into the creative process behind the Beast 2. The USS Beast 2 aircraft carrier was inspired by the real-world CVN-78 Gerald R. Ford class. I kept the iconic silhouette of the angled flight deck and island superstructure, so it's instantly recognizable as a modern naval powerhouse. But from there, I deliberately left the design open, so we could work around some frustrating gameplay elements with the elevators in the landing zone, along with Vertex budget management. The goal wasn't to create a perfect 1-1 replica, but something that is authentic, grounded, and ready. Alongside an entire new model, the Beast 2 sports some neat extra additions. The planes are parked all over the deck. There are fancy new buttons in the UI for using the catapults and elevators. The carrier's movement leaves a wake in the ocean behind it with actual physics, creating hazardous water conditions for any vessels following too closely. If you happen to be wondering where the carrier's typical destroyer escort is, don't worry. The old escort tools are retired, so you can't see them anywhere in this showcase, but they are pending new, more modern replacements that will be ready to keep your trigger finger in check, same as ever. In the wake of the new Beast 2, you might have noticed that the water in SimplePlanes 2 is looking quite a bit different from the very flat water in SimplePlanes 1. That's because it is using an asset called Crest by Wave Harmonic, the same asset that allows us to have bodies of water above sea level for things like rivers. We're finally able to support significantly improved water graphics and physics. But the biggest thing Crest gives us aside from rivers is support for actual waves that jostle your craft around the flat seas of SB1. No more, now you have to design your boats with turbulent water in mind, lest you get caught in the waves and capsize. You'll see it get with a debug tool, showing some behind the scenes stuff for the physics, with little pink nodes showing exactly what parts of the water are being sampled to gently or violently bounce your craft around. Wave size varies depending on the weather, water depth, and location. Anything unusual happens. If you set the weather just way far out in the sea, then if you do farewell, thanks to a mod like Castor, Mickey, who's actually been able to play SP1 with friends for nearly 5 years. As such, crafts that were made with this mod in mind make it better than SP2, than ones that weren't. If on the other hand you designed your ships for the flat mirror like oceans of SP1, you may unfortunately be in for a slight rude awakening. We've tested a ton of crafts from the website, and many of them don't take to the seas of SP2 very well, so you may have to do some extra tuning to survive out there. Aside from just waves to throw you around, the new water has a whole bunch of visual improvements. Improved underwater graphics, graphics on both the seafloor and your craft seafoam. Different colors based on the environment, coastal waves. For a huge game changer, not just for shipbuilders, but for pretty much anybody. consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these blocks early, consider joining our Discord server.
Social inconvenience is so right out there.
Aside from just waves that throw you around, the new water has a whole bunch of visual improvements. Improved underwater graphics, caustics on both the seafloor and your craft, sea foam, different colors based on the environment, coastal waves. It's all a huge game changer, not just for shipbuilders, but for pretty much anybody. If you like what you're seeing, please consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these blocks early, consider joining our Discord server. If you like what you're seeing, please consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these blocks early, consider joining our Discord server.
Activities we'll get into soon. Unlike SP1 though, in SP2 you'll be able to play all these activities in multiplayer.
Races! In SP2, there are a bunch of races for you to choose from, in a variety of locations, from traditional circuit races on the triplet circuit, to long sprints through a winding tube, to dangerous air races that let you thread the needle to truly off your aircraft piloting skills. To start an activity, click the activities button in the flight scene and select something. And selecting a race and a number of laps, and anyone in a multiplayer game will have a chance to decide whether or not to participate, as well as change their craft to something appropriate for the task.
Once in a race, it's the familiar setup of range checkpoints you're used to from SP1, with some visual and quality of life improvements, such as being able to restart from the last checkpoint if you messed up or someone rudely bumped you on course. This particular gift is a blooper from a developer playtest.
Combat! To test the lethality of your crafts, there are some combat activities to try out, best done with friends, as some of these are team-based. The in-game targeting system has been updated to allow easy differentiation between friend and foe, with allies appearing blue, enemies appearing red, and neutral crafts being green.
In deathmatch, the goal is simple: blow up more players than everybody else.
It may be advisable to bring a craft with multi-role capabilities, as some players may opt to bring a ground-based anti-air vehicle rather than an aircraft, which would be rather unfortunate for anybody unprepared. In bomber intercept, enemy bombers are coming to blow up the airport. Your job is to intercept and destroy them, denying them whatever goal it is they're trying to achieve. But be careful, they brought fire escorts that you'll have to deal with before you have a chance to eliminate the main threat. More players in multiplayer means more bombers and escorts, so you'll have to work together to defeat them.
Wacky stuff to relatively conventional activities like races and deathmatch, we have some curveballs that offer more unique
gameplay and mech invasion. Massive bipedal mechs are emerging from the sea to storm Driftwood Island, equipped with energy shields, guns, and lots of help you're gonna need to bring all the firepower you have in order to take them down. Please note that the footage you'll see of this activity here is of a work in progress. Build up the game with placeholder models for the mechs. This was actually the team's first ever time trying mech invasion.
Orc Snatcher is another multiplayer-based activity like Deathmatch, but with a more interesting twist. Combat to test out the lethality of your craft.
Around the map are numerous red orbs. Like new one, and he'll start following your craft. You can pick up as many as you want at once. Going out in a set location. Some are going set location. Some simple enough, however. Each orb can carry as maps and drag to your craft. And other players can steal it from you, encouraging you to ponder how many orbs are worth picking up before becoming a target for other players. We plan to add more silly activities like these as time goes on. When it comes to SimplePlanes, nothing is ever really out of the question here. If you like what you see, and please consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these blogs early, consider joining our Discord server.
And you like what you're seeing, please consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these blogs early, consider joining our Discord server. If you like what you're seeing, please consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these blogs early, consider joining our Discord server.
SimplePlanes 2 music. CM Supreme Dorian 6 minutes ago. As much as I love the music from SimplePlanes 1, it quickly got pretty repetitive game as there were only 5 songs and they played all the time, ultimately leading to many people just muting the music and listening to something else while they play. So for SimplePlanes 2, we have a brand new in-game soundtrack comprising of 15 songs composed by a lovely duo called Fat Bar, and we worked with previously to make the music of Judo, New Origins. They've made music for tons of games over the years, and we're really happy with what they made for SP2.
To give you a taste of what you can expect, here's a full song titled Speed for Speed. And while you listen, here's an interview with Fat Bar. How long have you been composing? And what other game soundtracks have you worked on? We've been composing for about 14 years now in games, but we also wrote music well before that as songwriters for various bands we were in during childhood. We've worked on a huge variety of game soundtracks, and it's hard to list them off. For more well-known live service games, we've done various music packs for Smite, the hit third-person MOBA. Then in the LA space, we've recently done work on Dead Zone Rogue, a lovely-looking sci-fi FPS indie space. It's where we do most of our soundtracks, such as Jetlands, The Demon Turf, Demon Tides, Crashlands 1, 2, Rugrats, Adventures in Gameland, of course, Simple Rockets 2, and the upcoming Bugsy 4D. What inspired the music for SimplePlanes 2? Our inspiration for this soundtrack was a huge part 80s rock and electronic music. We wanted to create something that spanned the era, from ballads to electronic to hard-hitting rockers. Having separate music for design and flight mode helped in molding this as well. What tools, instruments, or techniques did you use to create the soundtrack? We used our guitars, of course, but primarily a lot of the sounds heard are from our computers. We had plenty of great drum and keyboard libraries to work from. A lot of our keyboard sounds come from the Korg M1. Were there any unique challenges when composing for SimplePlanes 2 compared to past projects? I think one main challenge was really honing in on that 80s sound, particularly in the guitar and drums. We're always striving for a high-quality production sound, and when you're hearkening to an older era, you have to forego that in order to get something that sounds authentic. Which track is your favorite, and why? Hard to pick. Endless Journey is probably a favorite, because it's a breezy rocker that feels great no matter what you're doing in game. Aside from SimplePlanes 2 AI, which soundtrack has been your favorite to work on? Now that is an even harder question. I think in the last few months our favorite has been Bugsy 14. We rarely get to explore serious jazz funk music, so it was a real treat to rebrand Bugsy with some slick music. His history is full of pretty. I think in the last few months our favorite has been Bugsy 14. We rarely get to explore serious jazz funk music, so it was a real treat to rebrand Bugsy with some slick music. His history is full of pretty.
Music, so we really wanted to make some bangers on the new game. Where can people find more of your work? Folks can find our work on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Bandcamp under Fatbar, and if you want to follow us, we're at fatbar.com on Blue Sky and at Fatbar on X. Rather than playing it on a song, no matter what you're doing, looking SimplePlanes 1, parts of SimplePlanes 2 is music, I dynamic and change depending on whether you're chilling in the design or blowing people up in flight. Some of the songs are layered, so they'll seamlessly transition from calm to more intense. We're moving from the designer to fight or vice versa. That's one by one, there be many more songs that will play help. I need for help, keep the music feel less stank. Describing this with words hardly does it any justice, so we made a music video to show off how one of our songs adapts to your gameplay, titled Guided by Starlight. ESP2 soundtrack will be available to purchase on Steam once the game comes out, so you'll be able to listen to it all in a long time. We'll support that bargain, the developers. If you like what you're seeing or listening to in this case, please consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these blogs early, consider joining our Discord server. Discord server.
SimplePlanes 2 Wings Part 3 CM Supreme Dorian 12 hours ago. Welcome to Part 3 of our set of blogs showing off the new wings. This one goes into some more enhancements to visuals and physics, so let's get into it, starting with propeller blur. Propellers are technically wings, right? I know, put away your nerd emojis, I just had nowhere else to put this. So anyway, when something like a propeller blade spins very fast, it creates a blur effect that is rather plainly called motion blur. Propellers had motion blur in SimplePlanes 1, but it was very basic, merely being a flat rotating texture. Because of that, they had various visual shortcomings, mainly that they were infinitely thin from the side and they didn't really interact with the lighting in a convincing way. So for
For SimplePlanes 2, we borrowed a technique Philip had previously developed for version 1.1 of Juno. New origins for proper 3D motion blur on propellers, giving them actual depth, better lighting, and overall much better visual fidelity. Not only that, but the blur properly adapts to the current properties of your propeller, like the shape, RPM, or pitch. This effect looks much better than the old motion blur, so much better in fact that we've also applied it to helicopter rotors. Additionally, it holds up much better than before in slow motion or when paused, showing the blades partially blurred but not with the full intensity seen at regular speed. Propellers and rotors now also have new XML properties that let you customize parts of the motion blur's behavior, letting aesthetically minded technical players get their hands dirty to make things look how they want if the default values aren't cutting it. Span-wise flow. In the Wings Part 2 dev blog, we went over some of the physics for the new wings in SP2. This section will elaborate a bit on one aspect of those. Span-wise flow. In real life, wings produce different amounts of lift across different parts of the wingspan, with lift gradually being reduced towards the tip of the wing. This wasn't modeled in SP1, meaning the whole wing produced the same amount of lift, which left a lot to be desired. SP2, on the other hand, has a whole span-wise flow model developed by Nikki through blood, sweat, and tears, simulating it, and many of the resulting characteristics it gives to your wings, but in a simplified enough manner that you don't need a supercomputer to run it. One of the biggest differences you'll notice here is with stalling behavior. For the uninitiated, stalling is essentially when the angle of attack of your wing, the angle of the front edge relative to the airflow, is so high that it can no longer effectively produce lift, making the aircraft drastically less controllable. In SP1, the whole wing would abruptly stall at once, but now in SP2, wings will gradually stall from the tip to the root, resulting in generally much more gentle and realistic stalls. Induced drag is also modeled now, essentially being extra.
Drag than less efficient shapes, creating more of a need to balance your designs than SP1 had.
As a result of these new effects, Delta Wings,
Previously a notable victim of SP1's wing physics,
are back with a vengeance, now capable of reaching the high angles of attack they were always destined to, perhaps with a bit more proficiency than they realistically should, unless we make the physics even more advanced later down the line. But for now, their excessive performance makes for extra fun for the player. As this is inherently an abstract force that is hard to observe, we've added a nifty visualizer to see the lift and drag forces coming from your wings. This was originally a developer-only visualizer used for debugging, but our playtester saw usefulness in it, so now you too can see a flurry of benevolent green lines coming out of your wings if you so choose. Wingtip vortices. You know those little trails you often see coming from the wings of all sorts of planes? Those have a name, they're called wingtip vortices. They've been a fairly commonly requested visual effect for both SP1 and Juno for a long time, and at long last they made their way into SP2. We could have simply hard-coded some basic logic that just makes a trail come from the tip of your wing and called it a day, but we didn't do that. Using the span-wise flow model Nikki developed, we can have wingtip vortices that actually take the physical characteristics of your wing into account, like the lift it's generating, the distribution of that lift, the shape of the wing, and more. For a slightly more complicated explanation, wingtip vortices are, as the name might suggest, the result of a fast-rotating vortex formed behind the wing. Precise reasoning for the formation of said vortexes, complicated aerodynamic stuff that's beyond the scope of this post, but basically there's a lot of weird airflow happening on the wing, with sideways airflow and pressure differences causing air near the wingtip to rotate, which becomes the vortex. Normally these vortices are invisible as they're just air, but certain conditions such as your altitude can contribute to making water droplets in the atmosphere condense or even freeze inside the vortex due to the low pressure, which creates a visible trail in a rather similar manner to the distinct funnel clouds seen on a tornado, but on a much smaller scale. For a much more complicated explanation, Nikki recommends NASA TMX 2516, a paper published by NASA in 1972 that proved vital in his research on how to get this stuff into the game. He also wanted me to tell you he's jealous of their huge wind tunnel. If you like what you're seeing, please consider wishlisting SimplePlanes 2 on Steam. If you'd like to see bits of these blogs early, consider joining our Discord server. SimplePlanes 2 demo release date. CM Supreme Doring 20 hours ago. As some of you may know, Steam Next Fest started yesterday, which is a week-long event Steam runs a few times a year where tons of game developers publish demos of their upcoming games. As you probably also know, the SimplePlanes 2 demo isn't a part of it. We would have loved to participate in this Next Fest, but the flight demo just wasn't ready in time. However, though the demo isn't ready right now, we promised it would be in October and we intend to keep that promise. So without further ado, you'll be able to play the demo October 27th. That's just under 2 weeks from now. This demo will be available for a week, and as a reminder, it will offer a limited part of the SimplePlanes 2 experience with a read-only designer where you can look around and load our new stock crafts, or your old SimplePlanes 1 crafts and paint them, but can't add or modify parts. October 27th, that's just under 2 weeks from now. This demo will be available for a week, and as a reminder, it will offer a limited part of the SimplePlanes 2 experience with a read-only designer where you can look around and load our new stock crafts or your old SimplePlanes 1 crafts and paint them, but can't add or modify parts. Gain access to the demo as soon as it's available. Head on over to our Steam page. Find the Join the SimplePlanes 2 playlist section just under the game overview and click Request Access. When the demo comes out, it will immediately be added to your Steam library so you can just download and play. We're also steadily ramping up playtesting for the demo version, so if you click that button, you may get randomly selected to help test stuff a little bit early. In order to put our full focus on getting things ready, we're pausing our regular developer showcases for a little bit. We'll be back with another dev blog shortly before the demo is out, and then it'll be in your own hands. We're really excited to finally let you all play the game, even if it's only in a relatively limited capacity. We hope you had fun. The wait won't be too much longer. One last thing, although we weren't able to participate in it ourselves, if you're looking for new stuff to play, just want something to hold you over for a little bit before the 27th, we do highly encourage checking out what Next Fest has to offer and wishlisting anything you end up enjoying. There's a lot of cool stuff in there made by lots of great game developers. It's all free, and you might just find something you really like. There's a couple demos I'd like to personally shout out. The John Parts Defender Patrol, where you fly an MDP 500MG, a cute little Hawk Scout helicopter that would eventually be developed into the iconic little bird. It has a very interactive cockpit, and although it's playable at flat screen, I highly recommend trying it in VR. If you're able to, as it's really fun there. For any heart. For any heart. For any heart.
It's a realistic first-person spaceship combat simulator where you have to fly around using action
Plans, and we'll see you soon!
SimplePlanes 2, crafts and performance. CM Supreme Dorian 20 hours ago. The demo is just around the corner. This will be the final dev blog before the demo goes live on October 27. This blog will be going over the stock crafts you'll be playing with, as well as some performance and quality of life changes.
Stock crafts!
The SimplePlanes 2 flight demo contains a variety of brand new stock crafts, using the new goodies the game has to offer, with many more planned for the full release and potentially beyond. These stock crafts have been lovingly made by a bunch of our playlisters, all under the management of Cody Kane, aka Mon. The selection of crafts in the flight demo includes airplanes! Cody excels, crazy plane is D-Stocks, dots, fair for a flight, Husky Dynidens, Mr. T, and Chisel Sticks, with even more people making some of the black quad. In a release version, each craft is late flow, I care and love, with an Aquino Easter egg thrown around here and then they're reflecting the creator's personal interests. Before we show you the new crafts, here's a brief introduction from Cody. Hey y'all. I'm Cody, otherwise known around the SP and Jano communities as Mod Neat nickname. I know. Anyways, I've been behind the scenes working together with Jundro and the Platisters as a craft manager laser to build for the coolest, most fun, and easiest to use stock craft you've ever put your hands on. It's been a journey from the start, and I could not have done any of this without the Platisters' eagerness to build and help each other with their impressive builds, using all the new features that SP2 brings to the table over SP1. Let's talk. For me, here are a few images I've taken of some of the stock craft that will be available on the SP2 demo. Craft in the demo air text would be exhausting and not very entertaining. So please check out this overview video by Deep Space Industries, a longtime friend of the dev team. They put a lot of effort into this video and it contains nearly 14 whole minutes of gameplay going over each craft in the demo. So it's worth checking out! Craft loading. In our previous games, when you wanted to load a craft or make adjustments to your current one, you had to back out of the flight scene and into Designer, having to reload the whole flight scene every time when you're ready to use the new or updated craft! In SimplePlanes 1, this wasn't a huge issue on most modern hardware because there wasn't much in the flight scene that needed to be loaded anyway. So the load times were very quick, but it became significantly more annoying with Juno. New Origins and an SP2, it would be worse not just because we have a lot more stuff to load than an SP1, but because we support multiplayer, now which creates a whole other host of problems there. So in SP2, we thought, what if you could just load crafts or go back to the Designer without a loading a flight scene? And so we put our finest coding wizards on the task, and now you can save, load, and download crafts without even having to go back to the Designer. And if you do go back to the Designer, it won't unload the flight scene, keeping load times pretty much non-existent when you're moving back and forth between designing and flying. This solves every problem with the previous approach and makes things much more convenient for the player. Here's what Enter has to say about it!
able to swap your craft, download something from the website, or make a change to your craft without losing your progress. Supporting multiplayer forced us to solve this problem, and it ended up making the game so much more enjoyable in single player as well. Performance SP2 is quite a pretty game in comparison to its predecessor, and with that comes extra demand on hardware. Going on, SP2 on PC now requires a Dragon Den and Pilby's Con, at least for a beyond Plum. You may be able to get away with going below your gentleman requirements depending on your hardware and your standards. But if you don't have enough depending where you might not have much regardless, just because our game has higher sister, when trying big and us predecessor doesn't mean we shouldn't slide. Make it run as smoothly as possible. Make it wide, make it not boring. So in SP2, we have a lot of graphical settings to let you sacrifice maximum fidelity in favor
Of more frames per second, trees can be reduced or removed. Shadows can be disabled. Terrain details can be reduced.
And so
helping to ensure the game can run nice and smooth. Even if you don't have top-of-the-line hardware.
outside of just graphics, multiplayer has forced us to make a lot of optimizations to craft performance as well. As even a craft with a relatively modest part can cause a hefty drop in performance on the 7 other people using it at the same time. We will continue to make further improvements on this front over time. But right now, you should already notice considerable performance performance we had captured in one case. I draw you on the path. Monstrous crafts should run much better now. Best not to bring them into multiplayer though. Additionally, the new parts in SimplePlanes 2 are more capable than the old ones, so you'll be able to do more with less, meaning extra performance just from not having to use as many parts to make a detailed craft. Believe it or not, all of our new stock crafts use no more than 350 parts! Additionally, thanks to some wizardry by Nikki, the new wings and fuselages use a Unity feature called Burst to make them nice and optimized! And that does it! We'll see you in a few days for the demo! Don't forget to wishlist! SimplePlanes 2 on Steam! And if you'd like to chat with people about the demo when it goes live, join our Discord server! The SP2 demo is live! CM Supreme Dorian 2 months ago. The SimplePlanes to Flight demo is officially live. To participate, just go to the SimplePlanes to Steam page and click the Join the Playlist button in the playlist box. The game will automatically be added to your Steam library so you can just download it and start playing. This demo runs until November 3, so you have all week to play! To expect. As we've talked about before, this demo does not contain the build-in mechanics other than the paint tool. It is instead focused on the multiplayer sandbox aspect of the game on a small section of the map. You can try out all of the new stock crafts, repaint and texture them to your liking with the paint tool, race your friends, protect Driftwood Island from bombers and mechs, and probably also break the game in ways we hadn't thought of! When you enter a craft for the first time, there will be a little quick start guide telling you the basic controls, as well as how to load crafts and start activities. We have a variety of activities in the demo, and we encourage you to try them out! To play with your friends, click the fly button in the main menu and you can host or join a game! If hosting a private game, you'll have to invade people through the Steam overlay! If somebody is being a nuisance in your lobby, the host can kick them by the player list! If you come across a bug, click the little bug icon in the pause menu to report it to us and we'll take a look. Please make sure to provide clear instructions for reproducing the issue. If possible, once you've played for a little while, you'll be asked to fill out a feedback survey. Filling this out is optional, but doing so would help us a lot!
days ago. The demo's been absolute chaos, sometimes too much. And we're loving seeing you all finally in this little world we've made. With only 5 days left, we want to see you capture that magic. Since build mode is locked, we're challenging you to tell a story with what you got. And since time is of the essence, let's keep it short. Make a short form clip from your best SP2 demo moments without using AI and share it on YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikTok or Bilibili. Then send the links to the video to contest@2jumjo.com with the exact section. Went up in multiple platforms. Please put it all together in one email. And don't submit videos if you are not the author. Go! Watch all your videos and choose a winner. That'll get $150 either as a Steam gift or through PayPal. Your choice. If more than 25 people participate in the contest, we will